October 8, 2024, Special School Committee meeting. Item 1.1, District Vision and Core Values. District Vision, the Barnstable Public Schools educates the whole child by creating a student-centered school culture that addresses students' physical, social, emotional, and academic needs by creating a safe and healthy learning environment in which students are challenged, supported, and engaged. Core values. In Barnstable Public Schools, we value commitment, collaboration, and community. Commitment. We are dedicated to the continuous learning and growth for all. Collaboration. We work together while keeping student needs at the center of all decision-making. Community. We build strong, respectful partnerships that support student success. Item 1.2, statement by the chair, video or audio recording of meeting. This school committee meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the Town of Barnstable's Government Access Channel. In accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20, the chair must inquire whether anyone else is recording this meeting, and if so, to please make their presence known. Item 1.3, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 1.1, or item 1.4, executive session. Move to go into executive session to reconvene in open session to discuss strategy and preparations for negotiations with the Barnstable Administrators Organization.
I'll second.
Having a motion made and seconded, this is a roll call vote. Jen? Yep. Andre?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
And I vote yes. We're now in executive session. We're now reopening open session. So since I would like to go back and reread item 1.2, statement by the chair, video or audio recording of meeting. This school committee meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the Town of Barnstable's Government Access Channel in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 20. The chair must inquire whether anyone else is recording this meeting, and if so, to please make their presence known. All right, seeing no one, we're all set. So we're now on item 2.1, ensuring healthy indoor air quality in Barnstable United Elementary School, a community conversation with Dr. Marina Brock. I'll turn it over to Sarah first.
Thank you. Dr. Brock is here this evening to have a conversation with families and faculty and staff and the school committee from her perspective as a third-party independent subject matter expert in the field of environmental occupational health and safety from Soterra Environmental Health Services. And I do want to apologize. I had misstated her affiliation with Barnstable County Health Department. And so she has corrected that with me. And I hope I got it right this time. And that went out in the message to families as well. So Dr. Brock will be coming up and sharing some of her perspective as a conversation with you. I think she might try to angle her attention to the audience in addition to the school committee. So as to share her perspective, she very kindly came to the district last Wednesday. As I had mentioned, walked through the building with us, got the lay of the land, took some tape samples, and has some perspectives to share. We appreciate her lending her expertise to us as we deal with this environmental health challenge.
Thanks. I actually am a professor, so I have a teacher's voice too, so I was thinking I don't need a mic per se. It's good to be here. I don't really, I'd rather hear some of the perspectives of the audience of what's the concerns. I kind of know from talking to the people, and I've done this for many years. So I've probably done hundreds of audits and schools particularly, as well as other types of residential facilities and things of that nature. So I am both a subject matter expert, but also public health. So occupational health for you guys, teachers, I assume, right? Parents and teachers? No teachers at all? Good, okay, so teachers too. So both, representing both. Children, very important, all of these things. So what are your major concerns? Is there a spokesperson or somebody that can?
So I think what we'll do, if you would like to hear, we're being televised, so people will have to come up to the mic.
Oh, okay.
If anybody, let's go with families first. We're here to hear the families and the staff. So and remember that even though this is not public comment, we need to keep track in the minutes. So if you could state your name and then your comment.
I'm Kathy Duran, and I'm a community member now, retired teacher. And I do have many of my former students and my own family at BUES. I'm very impressed with the staff, the teachers there. But what really shocked me and why I'm here tonight is hearing last Wednesday's broadcast of everyone who is seriously ill with the mold exposure. We live on Cape Cod. We see mold here and there, and to tell you the truth, when they initially said, oh, it was cleaned, I trusted that it was gone and that would be it. But I didn't have this knowledge that so many other people have. The biggest thing that I think many of us parents and community members are concerned about is the health of our teachers and our children, based on the documented health issues that teachers have. And that was well said on Wednesday, and I don't have the, I'm sure you heard that. If you heard Wednesday, I hope you did. If not, they could, refer back to that. But many teachers are having serious respiratory illnesses, autoimmune problems, et cetera. And I think that, as a family member, hearing that, we're like, oh my gosh. Like one man said last week, he said, my son won't return. That really hit a chord with our family. Should we send him there? Loves the school, loves the teacher, it's a great staff, but should we put him in danger?
Yep.
So that's it.
Thank you. That's a good summary.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amanda McGarrigle. I'm a parent of one teacher in the Barnstable United system and the whole Barnstable Public School system. And I do want to say first, I know that this administration inherited this problem.
Yeah.
Okay, it's been ongoing since 2012 when the first report came out. I've read the report, the IAQ from 2012 and again in 2019. And I know that in 2019, a number of recommendations were made. I also know that since there's no standard for testing mold, it's not like these recommendations can be enforced. So, one of my major concerns was who is following up on all of the recommendations that were made in the 2019 report to address the water and mold and HVAC system in BUES. Okay, so that was my first concern. The second is we understand that the tape tests were done, but I think that we are concerned about the air quality. And I know, hopefully we'll hear more, but that's something that we're all really concerned about. If we read about moisture detectors, why can't those be implemented? We kind of feel like it's been, well, we don't want to do air testing, and we're all afraid that if you do the air testing, it's going to show something that's, what we're all afraid of, which is that there's something terribly wrong with the school and it needs to get shut down. Last thing we all want, but my kid loves school. I can't in good conscience continue sending him. He does get a cough in September that goes away in June. I can't say that he doesn't. He went through West Villages, and now he's in Barnstable United for the first time. So like I said, I know that this is an inherited problem, but we can't wait for 25 or 26 or 27 for it to be addressed. So I think that that's our major concerns. So thank you.
My name is Jillian Tesco. I have a daughter at BUES. She went there last year, and she was the sickest I have ever seen her. We were in the emergency room. We were at urgent care. We were at the pediatrician. I contemplated calling 911 because she could not breathe. She had a cough the entire year. And I'm sorry, but when you know that the kids leave the school, the staff too, and they feel better, we know there's something up with the school. Like, the tape tests and all that I'm glad we're doing it, but we need air quality tests, and we need continued air quality tests. It's outrageous that we are not, we need air quality tests. It's the bottom line. The only way the families are gonna be okay with this, I'm not putting my kid, once that heat is turned on, we're out. I'm not sending my kid to school anymore, because when the heat goes on, it's so bad. She was coughing. She had a cough the whole year. The week she left school, gone. She had depression, anxiety, all these different things that are not from nothing when you leave the environment and you get better. So we need something further to be done.
Thank you. Is there anybody else?
Hi, I'm Erin Peterson from Catuit, and I have one daughter in BUES. And I don't have a ton to say. I just, wanted to speak directly to you, Sarah, if I could. I feel like if you just would have had, the respect for us to simply say that you inherited a huge problem with BUES and truly put forth the efforts to connect with us on a human level, I think we would have more compassion for the position you're in. You failed to publicly state that you have had this information for years. All that money that was put towards your office, the pickleball court, come on, this could have been spent elsewhere. The building needs to be gutted. This is all a little too late for us.
Okay, is there anybody else? And please keep in mind, she's looking for concerns specifically about the building
Yeah.
or questions.
Those are the ones I can answer.
Can I go back up?
Is it a question?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Hold on 1 second. I'm collecting my questions.
Yeah.
I was just making a comment. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah,
Yeah, go first. Let me collect my questions.
Bear with me, I'm not good at this. My name is Brittany Burt. My son is at BUES here with me tonight, stood outside and rallied with me all day and didn't get an education today. My main concern is the visible mold in school and the lack of cleanliness in the school. My son, his classroom is on the second floor, and he voiced to me within the last few days that when he needs to use the restroom, he does not use the closest bathroom to his classroom because it is too dirty for him to use. He goes down the hall, downstairs, and across the building. And I said, well, what's dirty about it? Because he's a 10-year-old boy, so not much grosses him out. And he said that there's black stuff and green stuff everywhere, and it's too dirty that he won't use it. He also tells me that just recently he saw mold on the ceiling above the stage in the cafeteria. So my concern is sending my child to school where he is telling me he is seeing things. I'm not in that school for 6, 7, 8 hours a day like he is Monday through Friday. He also goes to before care, so he's in there a little bit longer than a lot of the other kids. He gets dropped off at 7 o'clock in the morning, and then he takes the bus home. So my concern is the cleanliness of some areas of that school and the visible mold that he is still seeing. When we're told that there is no mold, everything's cleaned up, but I believe my child over any email or report that I can get from anybody. So that's my main concern.
Okay. All right.
My question is they said that they fixed the HVAC, which was what was causing the major leaking, but all of these pictures are from after they fixed the HVAC. And those are all separate areas. Actually, these two are the same, but still, that's 3 different areas where they have leaks. So I don't trust, this doesn't make any sense. They're telling us one thing, and our kids are coming home saying another. And our kids, even if, let's just pretend like the air quality is fine, they have severe anxiety. They don't want to go to school anymore. They're scared to go to school. They're pointing out every little which thing because they're kids. They don't know what mold looks like. They shouldn't have to know what mold looks like. They're scared. They don't want to go to school anymore. And something has to be done. But again, my question is with the HVAC, so fixing the HVAC, which was what they said was the big solution, what they spent $500,000 on, which I don't understand, but that's besides the point. So what goes on with all the other leaks that are happening? From the rain, from the plumbing, they had to shut the water off. Our students and staff did not have water for an entire day, and they did not let us know that.
Say that louder.
Yeah, they failed to let
Right,
anybody
so-
know. I had a teacher in the building message me privately to tell me that there's no water in the school, and I went and picked my kid up, because that's unacceptable. So again, the HVAC that they spent, they didn't even replace it. They spent $500,000, but I'm not really sure how or on what, which, again, I'm not an expert, but why is there 4 more leaks
Yeah.
coming from other places?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Allison Amster, and I have 4 kids in the Barnstable public school system. None of them are in BUES right now. My eldest daughter was in BUES for 4th and 5th grade, and she, at the time, had chemotherapy while she was attending the school. And she had nosebleeds, and at the time, we didn't know what that was from, so I would rush her to the doctor and get her platelets checked because I thought that it was and now I truly think that it was related to the environment that she was in. My questions for you are, why the tape testing? Why, when you know that there's a request, like that we've been coming here for weeks asking for indoor air quality testing, why is that something that you cannot do or you're refusing to do? Why did you pick like the 11 sites for the tape samples?
I didn't, but that was what people had.
Yeah. So were there anything done in the attic? Because from what we've heard, there were a teacher spoke to a remediation person saying, I cannot believe they opened this school. It is filled with mold.
Wow.
So that's obviously a concern. So I guess, like, yes, we're glad you're here, and I know you are going to tell us that it's safe for the kids to be in the building, according to Sarah Hearn's report that she has emailed, but I also wonder if an allergy or asthma specialist would say the same thing. And maybe that's something that we have to consider, like talking to somebody of our choosing and not yours.
I agree with that. Yes. Third party, our choosing.
I actually, I'm going to come back up, Amanda McGarrigle. I wrote out 10 questions, and some of them
Oh,
have
no,
been
there's
answered.
somebody who hasn't asked
Oh,
yet,
sorry.
so can you?
Oh, absolutely.
Hi, my name is Holly Feltis. I'm a parent of a fourth grader, but I'm also an employee of the building. I just have some questions about the air quality. I'm also on the Health and Safety Committee
Oh,
for the
good.
school that's starting tomorrow. So tomorrow will be our inaugural meeting. I just had a question. We've been running, well, they were recommended to run the exhaust. And one of the reports, because we don't have an air conditioning system in use right now, and so the recommendation was to run the exhaust. That was per one of the reports.
Okay.
And on the days that the exhaust had been run, I noticed like a metallic smell. I'm not sure if that's the correct smell that was coming from it in the classroom. And so I'm just curious about that. Is that just from like cleaning agents because it had been recently cleaned? Another question I had was just about what are some other possibilities that we could do in the HVAC system? Is there like ultraviolet light or ionization or something that we can do, to clean that? And then today when I was in the building, I noticed in one of the stairwells, one of the air returns had a significant amount of caked on dust, like a lot. And if our HVAC system had just been cleaned, I understand that this is an air return and not part of the ducting. But I don't feel that that is thorough enough, so I'm hoping that you can maybe make some recommendations, to the facilities department, in areas like that, because the ducts were clean, but then the returns and where it's coming back out were not in every area, and so that's concerning. And I do want to say that there is visible mold in our school still. In some locations. And so I understand you had the tape test locations given to you. So I'm just wondering, when the mold comes up, what are your recommendations for cleaning it? Is it something that we need a mold remediation team to come, or is it something that, our custodial staff could handle? Is it, and again, I don't know per their contract, obviously that's not where you would weigh in, what could happen. But some of the mold that I have seen in areas like the cafeteria on the ceilings is more this week than it was last week. But not a significant amount, but it is growing. And so I'm just wondering, what are your recommendations for this moving forward, for when we see this? Is it something that we spot clean, things like that? And then I'm also just curious, if you could please weigh in on your thoughts on the respiratory conditions that many adults and children are experiencing. Because I am worried about my colleagues and even my daughter should something arise. So I'm just really curious, what is your perspective from a scientific standpoint and then from a human standpoint as well? So I appreciate you being here.
Sure,
And I
thank you.
appreciate everyone else being here as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Is there anybody who has not come up who would like to come up? Dr. Barak, do you want to address? Oh, who wants to come? Right, I just wanted to make sure there was nobody who didn't show yet. Okay. Did you want to answer any of the questions, or do you want to hear them all first?
There's a lot of questions, and this is a lot of information. It's a lot of information to convey to you, because it's not like, a lot of this information can't be, conveyed to you in short, straight lines. It's just complex. It's a system of problems. So what do you think, there's a couple things that jump out at me. You think that for example, air sampling, I think that's a good one to touch on now. Why do I not believe in this situation air sampling is necessary? There was one statement that said that, and I know what you were saying, because again, it's very hard and the vocabulary is so specific. You said there was no standard for testing. There's actually standards for mold testing. You can do grab samples, you can do air agitation samples. I mean, and then you take them in a big bag and you take them to the lab and you analyze it. So there are standard methods for sampling for mold. There's no set limit for safe exposure. So there's no what you want to call an MCL, a maximum contaminant level in air, or a permissible exposure level, or a time-weighted average level for these things. These are occupational. Okay, so there's two things that go on. There's occupational, which are workers, and that's handled under OSHA and exposure levels. And I believe that Mass DLS came in, which is, by the way, our OSHA for public sector. So we don't fall under federal OSHA, we fall under Mass Department of Standards, labor standards. So it's just different, and I can talk to you. And by the way, my phone number and my email is posted in that. You're welcome to call me and you're welcome to email me. I understand about autoimmune diseases. I suffer from autoimmune diseases. I certainly understand environmental syndromes. I've dealt with hundreds of people from the public over the years that have called me, and I have problems with fragrances. You've heard of those people, and it's true, okay? And absolutely have certain problems with other things, okay, from that standpoint. And they're valid. They are valid. Put it this way, they're valid. They used to be considered like you were crazy, but they're valid. So there's no permissible exposure level for mold. Now, children are a different population, so you're dealing with two different things. You're dealing with occupational exposure, which are adults, and then you're dealing with children, which are more they can be immunocompromised in a sense of just definition. They're a specialized population. So you want to be careful with that exposure. But there are no standards. And the reason why there aren't no standards is very reasonable, I think. And you fire right back at me if I, answer and, or you're confused at all, or if I can answer better. There's no permissible exposure levels because people tolerate different things differently. So for example, mold in the air. Some people can become reactive. Let's say you have a severe allergy to mold. You can become very reactive at very low levels, right? That may be a small percentage of the population in any given set. But the majority of people, and then some people can tolerate incredibly high levels and never experience a problem at all. Do you get that? So there's a huge variation. So where do you set that limit? At what level do you set the limit? I'd love to say that you set it really conservatively low, but that's not how it works, because there are costs associated with that, and not just with mold, with anything, because it requires again, and we can talk about that, and I'd be happy to talk to you afterwards too. But it's just not the way of the world. You can't set, when you have a range this high, as you know, where's the level usually set? Somewhere in the middle. You're not going to set it down here because that's just a little bit problematic, okay? So mold is that right there from a standpoint. What else was some of the other questions that you asked? So there are no standard levels. Air sampling, let's get back to that, okay? So air sampling for mold is one snapshot in time. It's crazy. Air sampling, I've never really been a fan of that. Yeah.
Well, don't they have the technology that's constantly...
No.
Point of information, can you come up and use the mic, because this is recorded and we want everybody to be able to hear. Thank you.
Sorry. I thought that I was told that there's some sort of air quality sensor that is hooked up to an app that is constantly putting out information about the air quality. So it's not really a snapshot, because if you're looking at it throughout the whole day, then it's not a snapshot.
Yeah, but that's not the kind of mold sampling you're asking for, and that's not a technology we have for mold. And if you think of this, just imagine this, because I get this a lot. I used to also do water science and hydrogeology and geochemistry. And people would always call and say, is my water clean? And I have this filter and it's now my water's clean. Well, the reality is there's no such thing as real-time sampling. There's no such thing as real-time filtering. The air and the water are filled with many, many different things, many different types of constituents. Some filters, adduction or abduction, they get filtered in different ways. So real-time sampling is incredibly costly and not practical at all from that standpoint, if you think about it. Okay, so let's look also at regular sampling. So let's say you come in and you have people come in and sample, and I don't know what the recommended schedule is. Does anybody know what they recommended the schedule, once a month,
Sarah, anyone, what they recommended the sample coming in and sampling the union? How often do they want people to come in, or?
There hasn't been any recommendation.
Good, okay. And that's the problem, is you're not going to have someone there 24/7. You're not going to have someone there 8 hours. What you're probably going to end up with is maybe once a week or once a month, which is one moment in time, once a week or once a month. Now, I know sampling from that standpoint, let's say they sample in the morning before the kids get there. Maybe they sample when the kids are there. Are the kids running around and agitating materials up from other things? Would the sample be accurate? Is it taken at respiratory column level? Are they doing a blow sample? So it isn't like you think it is. It isn't like real time, like mold. And actually, in a few weeks from now, you're not even going to see mold circulating because it's getting cold now and it's getting dry. And so what happens seasonally is you're seeing a lot of, not during the winter time, you won't. And that's why you don't see mold growing in the winter time, because we have forced hot air heat. It's hot, it's dry. And if you think about it, how do I want to explain this to you? Spores are really what we're seeing. And so why did I do tape samples? Because tape samples at least give you a real sign of what's settling out from the air. So you actually see it on surfaces. So you can see what it is, you can monitor it, you can see what's in the sample so that you know. Go ahead.
I think that with the lack of transparency, we're unsure that those, where you put the tape samples, not your choice, but the choice of whoever, are actually where the mold is. You said you didn't choose. Did you look around the whole school, or you only looked in the spots that they said to look in?
No, in the report, you'll see that it was a preliminary assessment. We didn't want to go in and we didn't want to go into classrooms and do that when children were in there.
Yeah,
We
understand. I mean, I was actually there while you guys were there.
Right, and we
Right,
could
so-
certainly come back, and that was something that we thought we could do if we needed to. We could do, another series of samples and check it out and see. So absolutely, and yeah, we saw some places. I think the people that took me around, they were honest. They said, in storeroom, this was covered with mold. Yes, it was. The molds that you encountered in the report were very common. I'm not going to. Aspergillus and penicillium, penasp, most common mold in this area. I see it everywhere. In fact, those are the two most common molds I see on Cape Cod, that and Cladosporium. That's what I saw everywhere. I didn't see anything else. And in fact, it wasn't just me, but actually the samples that were taken, the samples that were taken from the mold remediation specialists, they pointed to penicillin and aspergillus, not black mold. And that's the other thing we want to talk about. Sometimes you can see mold spotting and it looks black, and of course there's a toxic black mold, which by the way is not this at all. When they refer to toxic black mold, they're referring to another type of slime mold that in all the assessments I've ever done in my life here on Cape Cod, I've found twice, and mostly behind walls with constant plumbing leaks. So this isn't toxic black mold. And if you look at it, and I'd be happy if we do samplings and tape samplings, to bring you around and you can actually look at them under the microscope, and we can pull up computer pictures of the type of mold species, and you will literally see, oh, that's exactly what we have right here. So I want to be transparent. Yeah.
Yeah, we have one person who walked in and had put her hand up, and then I'm going to let her talk, and then you can talk, but you need to come up to the mic because we are live streaming, and so the people that aren't in the room need to be able to hear. All right.
Okay. My son hasn't been.
You need to state your name, please.
My name is Allison.
Last name?
My last name is Sharp. My son Evan was in BUES a couple of years ago. And actually seeing some of the parents in the crowd, they know my son, they know me. And I felt the need to get down here tonight because as I'm watching the meeting unfold, I don't disagree that you guys are doing what you can, but I have a son with cystic fibrosis. My son regularly gets treated in Boston. When my son was in that school, he missed upwards of over 60 days a year. And I got threatened and told that social services was going to get called on me. Never once did anybody in the district make it known that there was mold in that school. My son had a sick appointment in Boston today. I spoke with his Boston team. Had I been made aware of that, things would have been drastically different. But instead, BUES handled it as threatening me. I still have the emails.
I've gotten them too.
Yeah, so, and with that being said, I can promise you I can turn around right now. And a lot of these people know me and know my son and know what I go through with him. So my son is an at-risk kid, but whether it's my son or anybody else's child, mold is mold. And I heard what you said about being black mold being dangerous. Their kids, my kid, no kid should be breathing that in, no teacher, no staff member, nothing. I've heard numerous teachers come forward. I've talked to teachers. I work part-time at Mary Lou's on the weekends. I see a lot of the staff come in there. I've talked to teachers from Barnstable High School, Barnstable Intermediate. So BUES might be the worst of it right now, but I was already informed that it's in other schools in the district. And my son was tested today. So I can promise you that if it comes back that my son has mold spores in his system at all, this is not going to just end here. My thing is, you guys spent $500,000 on cleaning that school, is what my understanding is, what I read. I also found the public records of 2019 that the state and the town were aware of the mold issue. My son was in that school from 2020 through 2022. Never once was I told, hey, Allison, your son's been exposed to mold. So shame on the adults that dropped the ball and didn't tell me, because my kid could have died from that, let alone perfectly healthy children. Perfectly healthy adults could die from mold, being exposed to it for long periods of time. As I'm watching it on the live stream tonight, I came down here in my pajamas to make a point of, like, Barnstable as a whole has dropped the ball. You guys spent $500,000. My kid's not in that school anymore, but I have a couple nieces in that school. A couple of these parents, I know their kids. So I was told by one of your teachers, there's still carpeting in that building. Beyond me, $500,000. If I turn around right now, bet one of these people behind me works as a contractor, knows the cost of remediation, remodeling, things like that. There shouldn't be any carpeting in that school. Barnstable Intermediate School had a pipe break recently in the last 18 months. You guys fixed it, and then you steam cleaned the carpet, didn't pull it out. There's probably mold under that. So my thing is whatever the end result is here after we all leave here today, I don't blame any parent for not sending their kid to school, because if my son was still in that school, he wouldn't be going there. And I promise you, as of right now, if I find out Barnstable Intermediate also has an issue like that, my son won't be going there. And the next time I get a threatening email from any person in the Barnstable School District, I'll say it publicly, I'll involve an attorney, because Sarah, I messaged you personally via email. You acknowledged you got my email. I understand you're the superintendent. You probably have had a lot of backlash, a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, and I can be sympathetic to a point. But the fact that my son's terminally ill, I didn't even get that's awful that those things were threatened to you or anything, nothing. It was just a thank you, got your email. So you're gonna make the parents feel as if like they're not validated in any way, and every single one of them has a point. Every single one of them is doing what's best for their child. And it's very unfortunate, because I promise you, I'm gonna be glad to share the emails and the letters I got when my son was in that school. And I promise you, none of those was there any notification of there's mold in the school. And you guys knew since 2019. And you guys all dropped the ball. So I don't care if you have to spend another $500,000. You guys gotta do something other than just cleaning. Because I've done professional house cleaning. Sorry, if something's moldy, it's in a carpet. If you just steam clean it and leave it down, you're not getting the air underneath. You're not drying it out all the way. You might as well just let the mold keep going on its own and don't even touch it. That's where I'm gonna leave this tonight. I hope to God the parents behind me don't send their kids to the school tomorrow. I don't think any child should be in that school. And if anything, as much as remote learning really sucked for everybody, that's what I think needs to be implemented for BUES at this current time, because those kids should not be breathing in any of that. My niece, healthy kid, never had a medical issue. She's been sick since she started back at school. And this is her first year at BUES, so that's pretty sad. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sir, would you like to come up now? Well, if you think of it, just let me know. Dr. Brock?
Yeah, I wanted to say, we did not find black mold at your school at all in any of the samples, and I've never seen any evidence of that at all. And as I said, in the hundreds of samples, and not at samples, the hundreds of assessments I've done for mold, we've only found it twice in my life here on Cape Cod. It's incredibly rare, yeah. So yours was just Penicillium aspergillus. It was just a simple, common one we have everywhere.
Is this a new question?
Yeah, it's a new question. So when you say that you didn't find black mold, were you looking underneath all the ceiling tiles? Were you looking in the places where there were walls inside? Were you looking at the plumbing?
No. No, of course not. But again, but here's the other thing too that you have to think about. You know, I know a lot of people from many school districts and people that I've worked with. Anything above drop ceilings, the problem is that the potential for human exposure is how are you exposed to that? Do you see what I'm saying?
They're putting new ceiling tiles up every day, so they're disrupting whatever is there.
Possibly, but they're actually replacing the ceiling tiles because that was one of the things I think that was needed and requested, right?
Only if you solve the problem. We don't just want you to replace ceiling tiles every day.
Right, and I would ask that you ask a question and politely listen to the answer, please, and try not to have too much back and forth. I think Dr. Brock is trying to answer everybody's questions and take it into, provide her expertise to us and understands the problem.
Good. Well, I didn't see, I saw a lot of areas where the ceiling was open. I didn't see evidence of black mold. We actually got up there with ladders, like extension ladders, and got up and looked. Didn't see anything that looked like mold. Anything that looked like mold, not like what people perceive, like, oh my God, it's just crawling around up there. The other thing I think I want to answer is the first situation, you referenced leaks for the first problem, right, over the summer. So it isn't leaks that caused the first problem, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that because I think that's important. So on Cape Cod, I mean, I don't know about your house. I don't think I'm a horrible housekeeper. I actually will get mold sometimes in my closet or my shoes or on my belt or things of that nature. And it's spotty mold. It's basically cladosporium or it's the Aspergillus penicillium. I also don't have central air in my house. So there's that. It's like the old Cape Cod house. So what happens with the central air conditioning system is it cools the air, correct? So it keeps the occupants comfortable inside. So it maintains a relative humidity. Do you guys know, and I don't want to sound like I'm stupid or like you're stupid, but relative humidity is the percentage of moisture that can be held in the air, and it's relative to the temperature. So do you remember back this summer, those really wicked hot days that 100% humidity? Do you remember that? And it was 100% humidity. So it was like miserable. Like it felt the heat index was 110 or whatever that was. So at those times when it's very hot, the air is filled with moisture, right? You're like walking around and you're humidity. So inside your school, the air was tempered and was dehumidified through air conditioning means. So it was, let's say, I don't know, what might it be, 70 degrees, 72 degrees, is that comfortable? That's usually what the air conditioning is. So what happens is when people leave the building, that goes off because it's stupid to keep air conditioning running 24/7. And then what happens on Cape Cod is, what happens overnight on Cape Cod in the summer? But think about the temperature. What happens overnight? So you go 80 degrees, 100% humidity. What is it overnight? 70, 65? It drops sometimes 20 degrees overnight, right? It gets cooler at night. When that happens, all the humidity in the air precipitates out to what? Soft surfaces, so the carpet or the wall or wall coverings or pillows or upholstery chairs, right? And ceiling tiles, okay, because that's pretty porous. And that's what happened. So it wasn't a leak that caused the first one. It was a problem associated with the air conditioning system running too cold during a period of time when the relative humidity was astronomical. And when that system was, shut down, it precipitated moisture out on soft surfaces. Guess what that is? The perfect storm for mold. Perfect storm. because you're having mold spores circulating. And let me explain about mold spores themselves. They can be an allergenic problem, but as I said, in the air during the season, you can have 10 to 20,000 air spores, mold spores, in 1 cubic foot of outside air during the season. And we're not dropping dead when we're walking around outside, and that's a lot of mold spores. However, they're like seeds. They fly around and they circulate through the air, and they don't grow unless what? Like grass seeds. How do you get grass seed to grow? Water, and you need a perfect medium. You need an organic medium where it can take root in and grow. And that's essentially what happened the first time. So it wasn't any random awful leaks. The second time, I'm going to have you talk to the facility manager because he mentioned it. In fact, we sampled right at that juncture in the hallway where the pretty picture is, yeah. And we went up there with a ladder and found nothing, actually, amazingly enough. There was nothing above the ceiling. So there wasn't mold. There wasn't even staining. You could see like black, but it was literally old concrete that was on the wall. I did not see that.
That's this picture. Go yell into the microphone. This picture is from inside of that wall, up inside of there.
I'll have to look at it closely when we get in. But we stuck our head up there, and I actually took samples off of that, because that was where the most recent leak was. Yeah. But I promise you, I did not find anything. But you know what? We can go open that back up, and we can look at it, we can see, and I can check it out again. But I guarantee you, if I saw anything there that I would not want my child to be in, that I wouldn't want my sister, my mother, my brother, my whatever, I would be the first one to say this is a problem. But at this point, is it a problem? Okay, if you are incredibly sensitive to it, and this is where I'm going to put out to you a question, and this is what I'll tell you when I talk to you one-on-one, if I get the chance to. How many of you have actually been tested for sensitivities and allergies at an allergist? Good.
Yeah, I have an appointment rolling.
Love it. Now, can I tell you, and I'm going to tell you what to do that I think will be most useful, because this is what we've done over the years when we've gotten sensitive teachers or students or people. Ask your allergist, because they'll do a profile for the most common allergies in this region. Ask them to rate it mild, moderate, severe. All right, so every single thing that they test you for, you'll have a reaction of some sort, and it's not always the same reaction for everything. So you might, for example, have a moderate or a mild allergy to cat dander, but have a more moderate allergy to ragweed pollen. And then you might also have a moderate allergy to mold spores. And what happens in the fall, especially in the Cape, is a confluence of many things at one time. So any single thing might not bug you, but if you're getting dosed by ragweed or sagebrush or mugwort and mold spores and whatever else it could possibly be, because we're just talking about one small section of potential environmental allergens. We can't even get into like diacetyl or fragrances or VOCs or off-gassing of furniture, or which, you know, is a problem. There's a huge continuum of materials that we breathe in that can cause problems, right? And so finding out what that is so helpful, because I've gone into situations where they're like, we don't know what it is. And that's an impossible situation for the school or for me, because we'd have to test for everything in the universe that you could possibly be reacting to, and that you can't do that. So once you have that knowledge, then we can work with something. And if you come back, it's like, oh my God, you're hypersensitive to mold, then we can say, let's check out your environment and see what we can do. And we've certainly made recommendations for accommodation, like, okay, someone needs to go in there, a custodian, wipe down all these surfaces once a day or once every other day, working with you and accommodating you to make your environment or your child's environment more healthy. And that actually does work very well. And working as a team is very good too.
So I just have a question. I'm listening to what you're saying, and as somebody who's been to an allergist as well as my son, and we've both been tested, I am allergic to pretty much everything outside, more or less. I do have to take constant allergy pills. Yeah. But like, my thing is I'm listening to what you're saying, and you're right. It is a lot to test to figure out who is allergic to what.
It is.
But again, bringing back to me pointing out, luckily my kid is not in that building anymore. But since 2019, it's public record, I read it, that it's been known that there's been mold found in that building. So I'm sure, I know for a fact my child's not the only one with a serious health issue. The parents that may or may not even be in this room tonight, what would you recommend they do as far as like, what should they do?
If their child is still there,
Yeah.
I would recommend going through the series and begin to evaluate. I'm going to tell you honestly, and please, I really don't lie, and I don't lie well. But many people have come to me in situations like this, singularly or one individual accommodation or a child or a teacher, and they say, I have a mold allergy. I have a wicked mold allergy. I have really a mold allergy. And I'm like, okay, well, you know what? Let's do this process so we can really help you and we can really see how we can make a healthy environment for you. 90% of them come back with what? Do you think mold? They come back with dust mite allergies. Dust mites. Yeah, so I'm going to tell you, I mean, 90% of them, I've rarely encountered any individuals that have gone through this process that actually have a significant, extreme mold allergy, because it's pretty rare. But dust mites, no one gets worried about dust mites. You don't come and have these meetings and say, we're loaded with dust mites. Do you?
There was a teacher that was commenting that.
Dust mites are a significant allergen too.
All right, one at a time, please, and you need to be respectful of who's at the podium.
So I'm just curious, again, because I'm not the only one, and I'm sure there are other parents with kiddos with the same allergies. Say a parent goes out, they get the allergy testing and comes back that they are allergic to most molds. And one of those is one of the types of mold you found.
Precisely.
What's your recommendation now?
Then we have to see how severe the allergy is and what kind of you'd have to look at it as a case-by-case individual basis, because it is. So what am I to do? The most extreme manifestation, accommodation, maybe move to another school, that would be more helpful. But that would be taken seriously, and we would have to work with school resources. We'd have to work with, your physician. We would have to work with your nurse, things of that nature.
I just think, uprooting children to another school.
It's terrible. But what
that
is
would be the last thing I'd want to do to any child. But my thing is like, what can you do to help within the school building? What can be done going forward?
Everything they're doing, to be honest, and I know you don't want to hear that, they've done a lot. And I'm going to tell you, I've worked with a lot of schools with a lot of mold problems. I've never seen a superintendent more responsive than Sarah. And I know you're going to say, oh, because you have your opinion and you're entitled to it. But as the superintendents go, she's been the most involved, the most caring, the most, I want to say, right there supporting you and really trying to understand and get up to speed on all of these issues, relatively speaking, and doing it some decisions are hard. I've had teachers that had to be moved right from other schools because they couldn't be accommodated within the school district that they were. And
hopefully whatever the end result is for the kids that are in that school and going forward, is an overall, hopefully a better environment overall. But again, I don't think this just stops at Barnstable United. I think
it might not, but and we don't know. But here's the thing: what I see and what I've seen working with what they've done with the systems. And by the way, they were talking about exhausts. I guess one of the questions was the room exhaust. Okay. Yeah, the room exhaust ventilation system in the rooms are different. They have a central exhaust that's usually over in the far side of the room, and then they have the univent, which has a delivery and a return. Okay, and so returns, by definition, you can even see over on this return here. Do you see the smuts on that? There's this small faceplate over there. The delivery is the little fans, and then the one next to it is a return. Do you see? I can see it from here. Do you think that's mold? No, way over. Yeah. It's dust, and that's what happens. Returns and exhaust actually attenuate dust, and literally it clings to the faceplates. And that's one of the best sampling areas because you can see representatively what's circulating in the air because
that
it's
also affects the HVAC system itself too.
It does.
So if the HVAC system's not balanced correctly, and there's dust that's holding up on that, now you have.
Sir, can you turn the mic on?
Is it on?
He's on.
And you need to state your name.
Cooper Amster.
Yep.
So yeah, so now you have other systems pulling from other directions, that might be connected to the next room. It's an ongoing thing, right? So there's obviously different reasons with that too.
Yes.
With the HVAC system, I know it's an old building, right? I went to middle school there and it was brand new.
Did
So
you,
it's-
BUE?
Yeah, long,
I want to say 94. Was that correct? Okay.
30-something years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah.
And I was his teacher, and I remember him well.
We'll talk after. No.
He still owes me some homework.
Homework, eh?
I don't think I graduated BUS.
All right.
So I don't think I graduated. He failed me. But yeah, so that, I mean, obviously there's issues with that too, with the system. I'm not sure if there's any updates or anything on that. So, right. And then in the unconditioned space above the ceiling panels, right? I saw just the pictures I see randomly online, right? I've never done a full walk of the building. I don't know what's going on inside. I don't know the systems, the type exact HVAC systems, how many roof units there are, stuff like that. There's a million different ways to go about that. But just balancing reports,
Yes.
right, from a third party, right? Usually somebody from the HVAC company comes out that has the manufacturer rep, they balance everything for you. So, I mean, with the stuff in the hallway, that's what you're gonna see,
Yeah.
right? Because something's not working properly.
Yep.
And then the unconditioned space that you were talking about, right? There's really no need to test above that. But if you aren't testing above that and you have a air duct that's not properly insulated or
Yeah.
wrapped,
Yeah.
that air duct's gonna sweat.
It is.
And then that air duct.
Absolutely.
And then with these systems being 30-plus years old,
Yep.
usually they have, if you want to call it goop, they goop the seams, right? Which they glue it.
Yep.
That stuff's going to crack over time because
Yeah.
that warranty, and then so now you have moisture getting into the ducts, giving that perfect situation, right?
Perfect storm.
So with the perfect storm and the heat getting turned on too, and you have uninsulated ducts, uninsulated pipes. I saw uninsulated pipes up there, so those are going to sweat because it's unconditioned space, and you have all this hot water, cold water running through the systems. You're going to get those leaks everywhere. You're going to see leaks everywhere in the ceiling panels.
Those little that you see,
the little
yeah,
dots,
the
right?
wet
It's not
spots, yeah.
technically a roof leak, right? You're just going to be chasing around. You're just chasing your tail. But that perfect storm ends up being mold in the ceiling, and when you push a ceiling panel up, you disturb the mold falls down, right? And that could be the black mold, could be the other stuff that you're talking about too. So when you push those up, you undisturb it, right? Coming from a construction background, you need to plastic off the whole area. If you have something, that you think is contaminant, you plastic off the whole area, take everything out, gut the room, not like construction gut, but, move all the stuff that's in there. And then you remove the ceiling panels, so you're not spreading it to the room, right? So that's, with the HVAC system getting turned on to heat this winter, I was on this, are you not gonna retest this winter, or? Just
Which
because
question? Like retesting air sampling or
Yeah,
retesting
or even
tape?
the tape test, 'cause I
would
understand-
love doing tape up
Yeah,
there.
'cause I
but
understand
yeah,
that's
I didn't
your-
see any of that.
That's the most efficient way, right?
Yeah,
Usually, 'cause
absolutely.
You can identify the mold.
Absolutely.
Identify where it's coming,
Yep.
right? So
And I think
understand.
Sarah can address your question about when they plan to test. Go ahead.
Yeah, can I jump in for just a second, just to talk a little bit about the testing? We've reached out to 2 vendors and talked to them about testing kind of sooner rather than later, recognizing that there are some concerns, and we certainly want to address them and follow up on them. And so we have reached out to 2 vendors. They use different methodologies. So we're kind of, because this is kind of not a regulated area, we want to sort of fully vet and understand what they would do. Long-term, I've been working with procurement to put out an RFP. I think the RFP, we could go faster, but I think a full RFP process would be the most transparent in terms of the type of vendor we're looking for to support not just BUE, but the entire district in making sure we're appropriately addressing moisture management, mold prevention, our HVAC systems. And so we'll put out a full RFP, and I will be asking them to include what kind of methodologies they use, what kind of tests they use, what sort of ways in which they plan on supporting us. So that may have been a long answer,
Yeah.
but there's 2 things kind of at the works, something more immediate and then a longer term look.
And then another question, I didn't know, was there testing, did you do any tape testing on the outside?
Outside of what?
Any tape on the outside of the building?
No.
Was there anything down there?
No.
So from what the pictures I saw, right, maybe when you do go back, there's all the weep holes in the brick. Those were all bound up, right? And there's a cavity in between the brick and the building. So I know we're not gonna just go in and start taking down bricks, right? That's a little.
Extreme.
It's a lot, right? The building's gonna fall down, you take out the wrong brick. But I just don't know if there's any testing, like we could get something through the weep hole, you know, if you have any systems that you could do to actually penetrate that. You know,
Yeah,
there's-
and now think about
there's
it,
also
though.
all, you know, ultrasound, you can ultraviolet, like, gets through the wall there that you can figure it out.
But if you have, even worst case scenario, if you have mold in the interstitial space between walls, how is it making contact with human? How does it become a human health exposure?
Because on the other side of that wall, you have panels, you have metal studs, you have panels, you have studs. Everything's not always seamed, right? I guarantee the superintendent that was on that project's not watching them tape every seam of the plywood on the back of the wall, right?
But how extensive might you think the mold might be in the weep hole? Do you think it's growing all over
I mean,
the
over
inside
time,
of the
yeah,
building?
over time, it will grow, yeah.
It needs, though, it needs moisture, it needs substance, it's
Snow on the
yeah.
ground that puts
Yeah.
the moisture to the ground, and you have it builds up. So it just builds up and it comes through the wall, because, I mean, even though, I mean, the gutters there, right? I mean, I'm sure the roofing system's probably past its warranty too, right? The TPO system on the top there. I mean, you probably have seams gonna get it leaked through there. There's a lot that can just end up getting to the outside, up through those weep holes, up through the back of the ground, right?
Yeah.
It's probably all slab built too, on just a massive slab.
It is.
So you have leaks in the slab, cracks in the slabs. They didn't make a lot of very good vapor barrier back then. That, you know, now we have Stego wrap, which pretty much eliminates vapor barrier coming through the concrete. So now, I mean, back then, who knows what we put down? So, I mean, there's a lot that could come up and actually build up in that cavity of wall.
I don't see evidence of that, but that doesn't mean that doesn't exist. I
Yeah,
don't see
I'm just-
extensive.
so
No,
just-
it's good point.
I wanted
It's,
that
yeah,
to you, just
it
in case,
is
you know,
good.
when you do go back to
Yeah.
the, you know, for the extra tape testing or the extra testing, just throwing it dark.
I think that that's great, and I think that's great. And all of these things, actually, we should write down, and we should actually put down in, when we get the contractor in here, to say, what is the viability? Some expert that actually says, what is the probability this is actually occurring behind the wall? They're pretty honest, so. I know, thank you so much, I think that was great. One of the things, yeah.
My name's Sarah.
Hold on a second. Is this a question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it okay?
Oh, yeah. You need to state your name
I
first,
was going to until
please.
you interrupted me. My name is Sarah. I have a fifth grade son at BUES, and I have someone who works in restoration who's been watching this live because he couldn't make it here in time. And he asked me to ask you, you confirm that there's, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, aspergillus?
Aspergillus and penicillium, that's what I saw on the mold samples for the tape.
Okay,
But
but-
that's also what the service master, or the people that did the remediation.
I have another question, though. So I'm asking you, he wanted me to ask you, you're saying that that type of mold doesn't make people sick?
Aspergillus in this particular case is pretty mild, because can anything make anybody sick? Yeah, there can be people that are very, I'm going to just tell you, aspergillus is actually used in miso, it's used in cheese formation, fermentation of food, it's actually used in food production, and so is penicillium. And I don't want to discredit you, but, you know, everyone has this bad rap on mold, but mold actually it degrades organic material. I mean, we'd be up to our eyeballs in non-degradable organic material. So, I mean, it has its purpose in the whole scheme of things. Yeah.
Can you share with us the strain of aspergillus, please?
I think it's Aspergillus niger.
Sarah, before you leave, can you just make sure the recording secretary is your last name? You can do that on your way out. Okay, thanks.
My last name's O'Connor, Oconnor.
One thing you need to know, too, is the heat. I know everyone was concerned about the heat coming on. You guys have been using the univent blowing since the start of school, and that's where the heat is going to come from. So the univent is constantly circulating air. That's the point of the univent. Eventually, when the heat comes on, it then begins to temper the air to warm the air. And so it's the same unit. You've been using it all along. So I don't think there's going to be a major problem when the heat comes on, other than it's going to dry out the air. But because it's forced hot water, so it's not even blowing, it's not forced hot air. So it's basically a boiler system. So the coils actually heat the air with the water going through, just like I don't know if you have a boiler. So there's no like blowing of anything other than that. And they've also accumulated all of the filter changes that they've done, the cleaning that they've done. They have cleaned everything. I have never seen anything like this in any remediation. $500,000 was a lot of money, but they did like a level 1 hazmat removal there. And so from that standpoint, so does that mean that they did the exhaust vents going out? They did the blowing, the univents coming in. They did the louvers. They cleaned everything. Like I said, I've never seen anything quite that extensive, which is why the cost was so big. However, remember that big rainfall with 12 inches of rain from Chatham that week? That sucked for us because we were dry for like a month. We had no rain for a month. So we got 12 inches in one time. That may have precipitated more organic degradation for mold from that standpoint. And we might have actually, yeah. So
No, cafeteria is from rain. It's not from the HVAC. It's from rain. And if we're having a rainwater problem every time it rains,
Yeah.
the whole problem is not going to end because every time it rains, they're just going to replace the ceiling tiles. And that doesn't make any sense.
quite possibly, yeah.
Sorry.
Go. You could. No worries. Okay. Did I answer almost all the questions? I think, how about the teachers? Any question the teachers had that? Oh, the smell, you did say that. Okay, so you said when the exhaust turned on, right?
I just didn't know if that was just, like a ducting smell or if that was very.
That's what, when I turn my heat on in the wintertime for the first time, you get that. I have forced hot water, I have baseboard radiators, and it will burn off that dust smell. But that, I don't know if that's what you smell, but that's my guess.
Would you mind coming up to the mic? It's okay. It's just that we need to make sure the people at home can hear. It's an important
It is important.
dialogue. Thank you.
Just saying thank you. I assumed that it was probably just like a.
I can't swear to that, though, because I wasn't
Yeah.
there. So, but if it happens again, you should call up one of the
Yeah.
custodians or have them look at it.
Yeah, I was just curious, if it were not just that initial smell that you get the first time you run the exhaust, then what are the other possibilities that it could be? That was all.
Metallic smell?
Yeah,
There's few things that, other than metal or dust. I mean, mold does not have a metallic smell per se.
I
but
don't
yeah.
think it's mold.
Yeah.
I don't. I was just
It
curious.
could be cleaning fluids. I mean, they did clean the vents and things, but, my recommendation, and I gave it to Sarah in that small report, is that there's tons of things. Like, I've been advocating for schools for 25 years to use the EPA tools for schools. Have you ever heard of those things? Tools for Schools is like one of the, and it's been around forever, and no one ever employs it. And so do you?
We do.
Yay!
It's in our contract that we have.
But do you know physically, I mean, are you involved? Everybody should be involved. It should be transparent.
I am.
I love it. I want to hear this because it's a success, and I don't hear successes often.
Together before.
Did we? Yeah. Oh, what? Really? Oh my God. Tools for Schools and nurses and the nurses, the involvement of everyone, including parents, including the children, including the school nurse, including admin, including everyone, custodians, facilities maintenance. I want to talk to you after because I want good news. I want heartening news. But those are the most successful environments are when everyone's involved and everyone kind of has a say. And what I see is silos. I see, there are silos of the parents and silos of the teachers, and maybe not at your level because 4th and 5th grade is such a happy kind of, young kids and who can hate? It's just fun, everything. The teachers love them. So, but that's what I see, and it's all online. There are tons of fact sheets, tons of information, and tons of things that can be done. So I would love to see some of this money that might go for mold air sampling going instead towards, mitigation or going towards improvement or going towards education or, those are the types of things. And I'm probably, an eternal optimist. So, but I would love to see that going there towards, something that's going to be a positive outcome and empowering people as opposed to, everyone fighting each other, because I think the solution can come from people all working together. That's my little Pollyanna statement, so.
Is there anybody else in the public who has a question that has not yet been asked? Okay, so If a school committee member has a question that has not yet been asked, we do not have school committee comments on the agenda, so this is not a commenting time at all. But if there's a specific question that has not been asked, I'll start with Jen.
Yeah, I do have a question. Thank you very much. I think that goes a long way to answering a lot of the questions that I have. There's still more, obviously, and one of them is, we've seen so many parents come in and talk about their kids, and so many teachers come in and talk about their compromised health, and documented medical records. And a lot of them seem to be, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, a mycotoxin test is what they've been taking.
Mycotoxins are, molds produce mycotoxins, and it's variable with the species of mold. So some, like for example, Stachybotrys has a much more toxic mycotoxin, and ones like Pan aspergillus, they certainly produce some. All a mycotoxin it's a defense mechanism for the mold species to survive and kill off any competing life that's around it. So it's basically like it's a organism-made toxin.
So do those mycotoxin tests help you identify mold strain then? If someone were to take one, could it say it's aspergillus or it's penicillium or?
I don't know. I find
because I'm wondering about how we take suffering and find remediation. And
I would actually do allergy testing. Mycotoxins can be really they can be questionable they can just be questionable. It's kind of like from a standpoint of an AMA approved scientific method of testing, it probably would have some skepticism, not to say that it's not valid and they're not experiencing health problems. Again, everyone has individual tolerances, and then on top of that, you have genetic predisposition, susceptibility, you may have cofactors of infection, you may have stress in your life, you may have there's so many factors. It's like a perfect storm of why people, and no one should care more about your health than you. So I would, not you personally, but than oneself. And so I would go the route that's an allergist. I would definitely find out if you have sensitivities to it. Here's what I'm going to tell you. When I rarely ever see infections with mold. So for example, when someone calls me and says, I've been diagnosed with Aspergillus pneumonia or fungal pneumonia, I immediately know that there's an immunocompromised status because healthy people don't get fungal pneumonia. Okay, they just don't. And can it happen? Absolutely. And some weird I'm totally immersed in mold spores and I was breathing it for 24 hours. But the truth is most healthy people don't get fungal infections of the lungs. We get bacterial, we get viral infections, but fungal infections are very specific. And so mycotoxins, I don't know. I don't know whether it would be, I could not respond to that. I couldn't look at that and say, oh my God, you're responding to this species of mold.
I'm just trying to bridge the gap because, we heard from a teacher.
Jen, is this a question?
Okay,
Because we
Kathy,
do
that's
not
good.
have
I'm done.
school
Thanks.
committee comments on the agenda. Thank
It's
you.
a good question. Thank you. And you can contact
Andre,
me.
is there a specific question that hasn't
Yes,
been
there is,
asked?
Chair. Dr. Brock, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. How many instances did you do testing at Barnstable United Elementary School in
That one time.
last year?
We did the sampling, just that one time. So we did the tape sampling. That is when we walked through. And it was 2 hours. It wasn't an extensive evaluation, but that was made clear in the report. We looked at the places that I guess had been pointed out by teachers and parents that actually are some of them represented there, some of them not. And I thought it was a good representative sample, but not total.
And to clarify, Dr. Brock, you've enthusiastically and adamantly stated that you found the school to be safe and did not find mold. That's your statement, that the school is safe, you did not find mold that was dangerous to students, and that we should be in schools. Is that correct?
Actually, what I said was what I saw from the sampling that I took and walking around the building, I didn't see anything that made me feel alarmed that this was an imminent health hazard, a public health hazard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Therefore,
Very
since there's no imminent health hazard based on what you've done, why then, Dr. Brock, do you not recommend continual testing going forward
I think
to verify.
Andre, just.
Point
a
of
minute.
information, excuse me, what's the reason for your
Andre.
interruption, Kathy?
Please wait. That question was asked about why we don't do the continual testing. She answered that a little bit earlier, and that answer will be documented in the minutes.
Kathy, that's not specifically what I asked.
You know what? I'm going to respectfully ask that if you have a question other than why continual testing isn't coming, you may ask that,
So,
but we've
Kathy,
already
to
asked
clarify,
it.
the reason you're interrupting is because you're saying that my question was asked before. And what I'm telling you, Kathy, is this is a different question that I believe I can
So
answer.
ask it very quickly and finish the question, but we're just trying not to repeat the questions that have already been asked and answered.
Sure, I'm not aware of a time limit on the questions that a school committee member might ask during a special meeting.
Go for it.
You
Thank you, Dr. Brock. As I was saying, so you're adamant that the building is safe and that there's no immediate danger to students and to our community members. Why then do you not recommend continual testing to verify your assertion?
So, okay, thank you. So you mean continual air sampling?
Continual air quality testing to begin with, yes.
Yeah, I think because there's no such thing as continual. It's basically a snapshot in time. All the mold sampling that I've ever seen from air is they come in, they set up, there's several different ways to do it. They can do grab samples, which they just take in different areas, and then it's analyzed in the lab. They can also do, which is a little more radical, they put literally fans all over the room on the floor to like blow and suspend whatever might be on the floor or around the room. So you'd grab more of a, I guess, velocity sample. It would be more worst case, right? Because generally there's stuff on the floor, but we're not usually breathing it because we don't shake it up that much as far as disturbing the environment. So those are two different ones that I know. The continual monitoring it's just not a possibility, truthfully, because a school that large, where would you put the continual monitors? Would you put them like 3 in a classroom? Would you put them all over the hallways? And there isn't even a technology, I believe, that actually does that. They do that in some factories for certain chemicals. If you know you're using them, they'll have real-time monitoring of methyl ethyl death or something, and then the workers can see the real-time sampling results on the wall. But I've never heard it for mold, because I'd have to research, and I will do that for you, okay? I will look and see it, and I'll see if I can find a good answer, because I'm curious now too, but it's not something I've commonly ever heard of or encountered. So.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Brock. So,
Thank you.
To your point, since continual testing for mold, as you say, does not exist in your statement,
yes,
what test does exist to verify the existence of mold in a building?
Those one-time moment-in-time pictures, the ones I just described, the grab samples or the ventilation where you would blow things off of the floor. You may do that for 20 minutes and then come in and grab a grab sample, which is a much more representative sample of that. But that's actually not really practical, because how many times, how do you want to say this? I mean, how many times if you're in a classroom are you blowing things off the floor and you're, yeah. That I do believe for the kids, but yeah, yeah. I don't think you'd find. I don't think it would. Yeah, could you do it and maybe make people feel good because you never find anything? But how? I don't see the merit to it. But that's something to still be decided by the other consultants coming in. Maybe that's something that will happen.
Dr. Brock, have you seen a situation in your experience in a school district? Parents talking about taking their kids out of school, having considerable fears about the safety of a school building. Have you encountered a similar situation similar to this?
Yes, actually in Falmouth, when they had asbestos release in one of the middle schools. That was they actually did empty the school, and they moved the kids to schools for 3 months until remediation was done. And even that was probably overkill, but it was necessary because of the fear of asbestos.
So you're familiar with a similar situation, Dr. Brock. Did you then, or would you say that in that instance, the situation in Falmouth, that it would be then practical to have mold testing in order to...
This was asbestos, so...
Sure.
Yeah.
In order to asbestos testing to reassure?
And they did. They did exactly what you guys did with the $500,000. They did the whole remediation. They cleaned everything out. They had people doing wipe tests that ascertained that it was completely clean. So it was pretty much not asbestos here, mold here, asbestos there. But they generally, when they're doing a decon of a building, they do a commission closure. So they go around and they check to see that everything is done and everything is clean. And I've got to tell you, I mean, I've been through that school many times in the years past. It's clean. It's very clean. Looks very good, I'm going to tell you. So from a standpoint of now walking through it, it actually is clean. So from that standpoint, just presently now.
So there was testing that took place in the Falmouth example after the remediation to reassure the public that the building was safe.
And there was the testing done here. Service Master actually, they actually follow through with that because they have a pretty good integrity of it. So they did the remediation. I looked at the report. It looks good. I looked at the DPH report. I looked at the DLS report. And again, I think most people are okay with what Service Master did. I think some of the concerns I'm hearing is what happened afterwards of the leaks and things that you saw sporadically. And that could have been the 12 inches of rain that fell, within a weekend's time. Could have been a lot of things. So, or even what the gentleman said who left, which was, pipes that were condensing above the ceiling. And that's just common, very common.
Good. Peter?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Brock. I appreciate you being here tonight. I know mold is moisture, and I believe it was Amanda who suggested moisture measuring devices, but I'm not sure I heard an answer. Did I get an answer to that?
I didn't hear the moisture measuring. I like moisture It's just actually.
Would that make any sense in
Absolutely, it does. That's how you almost find leaks and things of that nature. And moisture meters, and they're relatively inexpensive, and I believe facility has them. And that's something that we could show the teachers too. Is under tools for schools, is show you a moisture meter and show you when it's registering. And if you have questions of sometimes you'll see staining on the ceiling tiles, and it will be bone dry. So it would have been something that happened years ago or months, whatever, and it's bone dry at this point. So there's no viable mold. And that's the other thing I want to state is on the sampling, I found no viable growing mold. It was all debris. It was all spores. I found broken hyphae. And when you see viable mold, and I'm sure everyone in here has seen the furry looking mold that, kind of comes off a little bit, and it's a viable plant. It literally is connected. It has flowering elements to it. It has the little leaf structure. Nothing. I found nothing that was living. Everything was debris. Everything. Spores and debris. So, and I would tell you if I found viable, but again, like I'm saying, they might take samples and say, oh my God, that's alive, but I found nothing evident of a living structure.
And I'll try to phrase this as a question. I feel like I'm on Jeopardy here. I was in there today and looking at some areas and around the nurse, were you in the nurses area?
I was.
Okay, and there was an assistant principal room. I think that's closed off.
And that's also been cleaned. When we went in there to sample, that was one of the first things we did, but it already had been stripped and cleaned.
Yes, but to my eye, it doesn't look clean. The floor has, I don't know. It smelled pretty bad.
It's partially stripped of wax, but the facility guys can talk to this a little more.
Okay, but more concerning to me is just like walking around the nurses area. I'm no expert like you are. I'll tell you, that looked like mold that's on the floor.
Did you try to take it off? It's hard as a rock.
I'm not that foolish.
No, I'm right down there with you taking it off. It's actually rock hard. And in the beginning when I saw it, I thought it was a phenomenon called effervescence, which usually happens around the seams where concrete, the moisture, and there's a slab on grade is a moisture thermal sink, and so it's cold in the summertime from the ground coming up, and when it meets the surface, it meets that hot, humid air, and you have effervescence, which is mineralization of concrete, and it's like hard as a rock. But that happens on the seams. linoleum or whatever the tile is there doesn't grow things. It's not like a budding living thing that grows things in the middle. And when we went down to go sample it, it's hard as a rock.
So you sampled that particular area?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In fact, I had to scrape things off, and I did taste samples first and then scrape material to do an analysis of what the material was. But it was, I think it was food. It was probably...
Boy, I don't know. Unless they drop.
This was over by the window, by the way.
This is like behind the nurse's where
Yes.
she sits.
Yeah.
And I had stated that I think the reports stated. Oh, she stated food, and she said, "I don't eat here. This is not.
It could be
it's not
dripped
food."
coffee. It could be
I said it could be a drink.
Could,
and she said, "No."
But
no.
I'm going to tell you, if and just from a standpoint of thinking, I had to scrape that off with a razor blade and bring it off.
Yeah.
How easy is that going to be respirable?
Right.
So I'm thinking. from that standpoint.
and I heard like horror stories. I actually saw a trail of emails dating back years about leaks in the ceiling in that area, and just to get a leak fixed, oh my God, you had to jump through hoops. This is 6-7 years ago, maybe not ongoing for years, and I think that's moisture.
Is there a question?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
And there was I'll say one thing they did. There was vegetation really extensively around that whole corner of the nurse's office, like thick trees that probably were nice little, shrubbery when the school was built.
That's my question. So you think there were trees?
No, they cleaned that whole thing out.
Yeah.
That's going to improve that area tremendously.
Yeah.
They cut everything down.
Yeah.
And I know I love trees, but that was holding moisture in. It was pollen. You'd have pollen coming in the windows and things. And I've seen that at many school districts. So.
And just my last one. I think, are we leaving here tonight with okay, here's where we go from here? Is that?
So, for right now, the purpose of tonight was to listen to the families, let them have the opportunity to ask questions so we could have Dr. Brock, our expert, address as much as she could. Sarah's laid out what has happened and what she plans to happen tonight. We as a school committee cannot formulate anything, so I think we're all reflecting and letting Sarah do her job and communicate with us as she normally does. There was one person I saw with a hand up. Did you have another question? Yes.
Hi, my name is Lana Ducheney. I just had a question for you based on your recommendation for people to get allergy testing.
Yes.
So it seems like it's maybe not such a large portion of people based on the amount of people that are in the school, but it is a large number of staff and students that are having issues. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if there's no level of what's safe and what's not safe, that it might be more on the less safe side if such a large quantity of people are having an issue.
Okay, and I don't know the quantity, so I don't know how many students are there. I don't know the ratio. I don't know the faculty. Is it 10%? Is it 100%? Is it 90%? Or how many kids go to BUE?
700.
700. So is it like 500 kids having problems? Is it?
And I don't know that either,
don't
but I
either.
just
And
feel
that's all good information though to be able to,
somebody should figure that out, and we can figure out if it's a large portion of the kids that are having issues or not.
Yeah, I don't know who would figure that out. The school nurse, I'm not sure. You could do a survey. I mean, mostly what I would say, if it's common to most other facilities, I'm going to say probably it's there's going to be elements of children that are more susceptible, elements of staff that are more susceptible. It's like a bell curve,
Right.
And so you're going to always kind of see that even in the best environment. I still see people that have susceptibilities. The other thing, and I won't even go into this because it goes back to COVID, but how old were these kids when COVID happened? How old were these kids?
Like kindergarten?
They were kindergartners.
Yeah.
Kindergartners or before kindergarten.
Yeah, I know, and the point I want to make, and I don't know, because I have not researched it, but I have certainly studied COVID. I teach at Mass Maritime, so I have, by the way, at Mass Maritime, it's been a perfect storm of, all the kids have been ill in the last 3 or 4 weeks, so it is something is circulating, okay? And they have a joke at Mass Maritime that it's not COVID if you don't test. And so again, I don't know what it is, but actually COVID is rampant in Massachusetts right now. It's one of the highest. So you can look at those maps on the CDC, and we have a very high rate. And how they're finding that out is through wastewater. They're seeing that it is. So COVID is the new strain. Yeah, wastewater. You can see the little virus in the wastewater, let's just put it that way. Yeah, so again, so that's going around too. But what was I saying? I just went off. I'm tired. I've been up since 4 this morning because I had to teach all day today. So, but anyway, yeah, the immune system. Oh, thank you. You are the best. Thank you. I love you. So the immune system. So the kids that were very young, that had to shelter at home at that time, didn't get their immune system exposed to the typical childhood illnesses that they did. And it's crazy, right? You think, oh my God, how could it have hurt? But they weren't getting those viruses that you get in kindergarten and before nursery school and things of that nature. So their immune system was deprived of this level of immunity. Now, I don't know if this is true with your population. Don't know, but I'm putting it out there because there's research out there and we can look it up and we can see. But I suspect we might be seeing some of that these kids just didn't get exposed at the time that they should have developmentally been exposed to a lot of these rhinoviruses and colds and RSV and things of that nature.
Is there a specific test that parents can ask the allergist for to find out if their child is extra sensitive? Or
yeah, it's regular. Just most allergists in this, I've had it done myself once. Most allergists will they have a profile of the most common allergens in this area. So the molds and the spores and the pollens and different things of that nature. And then they run. I did it when they did the little, wet test like this. I think they actually can do it with blood now. I'm not sure. I haven't done it for quite a number of years. But what they can do is, and you definitely need to ask for, don't just get a general, you're allergic, da, 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 da. Say, can you please rate it as to being mild? Because they can do that.
Right, my son has a peanut allergy, so I'm familiar with.
Exactly, and so then we have something to work with, It's like, oh my God, I have worked with people that had dust mites allergies, and we put them on a heightened cleaning schedule, and that alone just helped them survive in their classrooms. And that's just dust. And some of the classrooms, not just at BUE, but in elementary school in general, there's a lot of classroom material. And I understand why. I've had hundreds of teachers tell me we have to keep the kids amused and they need lots of things to, but it's also very difficult to clean that for dust from that standpoint. Average custodian, I know you're gonna be shocked at this, how long? They have about 9 minutes to clean a classroom every day, 9 minutes. And I don't know about you, but I can't clean anything in my house in 9 minutes. So, so that is, but then again, with Tools for Schools, working as a team, the classroom instructor could maybe prepare the classroom. They could containerize stuff. They could put the chairs on the desk, so people could be more efficient with the time they have. And I know people are going to say that's not my job, and but you know what? You're doing it for an environment of inclusivity. You want to actually all be part of the problem, and part of the solution, and not part of the problem. I know I'm a big Pollyanna. I would be the one putting the chairs on the desk, and I'd be wiping, and I went to Catholic school where we actually pounded the erasers outside. The kids did. That was what you did. You wipe things down. But anyway, I know it's a different world, but we could reinvest in a more, I don't know, that's just my mentality. I think things always happen better collaboratively than they happen separately when people work together. So. Enough.
All right, thank you so much. You've had a very long day, and you've been so patient, and your explanations have been excellent.
No, it's hard. This stuff is so complex, and I totally invite you to email me or call me, because it's so specific and individual, and you can't do this in this venue. I can't because it's just too complex, but until you understand. But again, thank you very much for.
Thank you. And I do want to let all the families and the teachers know that Superintendent Ahern and I will be coming. There will be another meeting for the parents, so that tonight was really meant to be Q&A, and I know there are a lot of families who have a lot to say, and this was short notice. We wanted to hold the meeting as soon as possible, staying within the confines of the open meeting law, but we will be at your school, and you'll have ample notice. The emails and your patience, and I know I tried to answer every single one that I received, and I don't answer anything unless I've read the entire thing. So with that, I'm concluding this agenda item, and we'll move on to item 2.2. Approve the field trip request for DECA students to attend the Ultimate DECA Power Trip in Charlotte, North Carolina, November 15 through 17, 2024.
So thank you. This is in your packet. There is a field trip request from the advisor, Brent Jansen, to take 9 students to Charlotte, North Carolina in November. Normally, we have a little bit more notice, but we did not want to it's the beginning of the school year, didn't want to harm the students if they're ready and prepared for the trip. Wanted to put this in front of you if you are willing to approve it. It has been reviewed by David Anthony and has been cleared from that perspective.
Does anybody have any questions? All right.
I move to approve the field trip request for DECA students to attend the Ultimate DECA Power Trip in Charlotte, North Carolina, November 15th through 17, 2024. It's presented in tonight's materials.
Second.
Having a motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Item 2.3, approve the field trip request for the girls' volleyball trip to Springfield, Massachusetts, October 13, 14, 2024.
This is a request from Coach Tom Turco to take the girls' volleyball team to Springfield, Massachusetts. There'll be 15 students with 2 chaperones. Transportation is being provided by the athletes' families, and it has also been reviewed by David Anthony and approved.
All right, any questions?
I move to approve the field trip request for girls' volleyball trip to Springfield, Mass, October 13th to the 14th, 2024, as presented in tonight's materials.
Second.
Having a motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
And motion carries unanimously. Peter?
I move to adjourn the special school committee meeting of October 8th, 2024.
Second.
Having a motion made and seconded, this is a roll call. Jen? Andre?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.